Async await is the worst thing to happen to programming. That's a very strong statement. Let's find out why. I recently saw this meme about async await. Okay, let's see this meme. Function A, function B, function C, function D, function E. I think I've seen this one before. Function F. The F is the async. Oh wait, everyone has to be async now. Woohoo! I guess this is basically making fun of the fact that if you use an async function, you basically have to become async. And then every other function that calls you also has to become async too. So I guess that's a good start to show why async functions are really bad. Let's see what replacements they have for it or what suggestions they have. It's so good, it captures exactly how I feel about async await. If you wait for sync code, your functions now has to be async as well. And if there's any function relying on that function, that code also has to be async and on and on and on. Okay, blah, blah, blah. We get the point. I've always hated this, but there's no better way to do this. It's a necessary evil, right? Right. Well, I've recently been coding a lot in Go. Oh, that's correct. Yeah, I actually started coding in Go just to like make some videos, and I did realize that if you code in Go, you actually don't need async awaits. Let's see how that works. I'm just going to create a simple Go file, and I'm just going to ask cursor to create a function that fetches something from an API. Let's just see how that works. Yep, this is the beautiful Go function. You can see right here the get request is made, but notice something special. There's no await here. So this whole thread actually gets blocked until the await, until the code gets fetched. And they also have this defer that essentially you're basically saying at the end of this function, call this right before you return. And yeah, it basically like blocks. I think it blocks here actually when you're reading all, and then it returns it right here. So this is cool. I guess I can see why if you use Go and get used to not using async and then you go into something like JavaScript where you have to basically await and blah, 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 you probably hate it. Let's actually make a similar function in JavaScript just to see how annoying it is. So I'm gonna make playground, I don't know, 10.js because I have so many playground files. Create a function in JS that calls an API and returns the response, something like that. Oh no, and let's say and prints the response. Okay, boom, we already see the async. Async right there, this whole function has to be async. Then you have to await the fetch right here because this is a asynchronous function, blah, 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 on and on we go. And you can see this is async free code, this is async code. The annoying thing about this code, I guess, is that if you now have another function called, I don't know, blah, that has to then call that function, you then have to await it, and then this function also has to be async. So that's why this is annoying. Now, if I have create another function that uses the fetch from API function. Keep in mind, I don't really know how to write Go, that's why I'm just using cursor to write it. But you can see right here, if another function calls this, again, there's no await required. You can just like call it right away. And this basically blocks until the function responds. And then you get your response and then you can do something with it. So I can see why it's a lot easier to use, use asynchronous functions in Go, but let's read on to see what else they say and how that might be fixed and what else they hate about it. Okay, where were we? The first time I realized that Go did not have async await was when I wanted to get my function to wait for 1 second. This is because I made an RSS reader stratum, that whatever that is, stratum. What the hell is the RSS reader stratum? Anyways, that fetches a lot of RSS feeds. And it turns out sites don't like it if you spam their site with a request or rate limit you. Oh, okay, so he had to use rate. Is it he? I guess it is. Okay. Andrew had to use, had to basically like bypass the rate limit by basically sleeping between every request. So in Go, Andrew just wrote something like this, time.sleep 1 times time.second. Now I had some question, what is time.seconds? Turns out this is how it's defined. A nanosecond is 1, microsecond is 1,000 times that, and obviously a second is 1,000 times milliseconds. A bit weird, but sure. Is this weird? mean, this looks pretty nice to me. Anyways, but more importantly, there's no await in that code. I was curious how this could be. If you don't have await, how do you delay? You'd have to use a spin lock, the least efficient lock possible. It's called a spin lock because the code continuously spins until the lock is released. It's basically stuck in a while loop. But no, turns out this is not what is happening. Turns out Go is able to put the thread to sleep without having to rely on any archaic await syntax. And this is a complete game changer. Let me see how many people actually use Go. How many developers use Go? I've never actually met anyone that uses it. 13%. That's actually massive. What's JavaScript? How many developers use JavaScript? 13, let's actually look at this. 13, where is it? JavaScript. Okay, here we go. 13 billion developers use JavaScript and Go is used by 2.1 million. Either 13.8 billion people, oh sorry, not billion, oh my god, I read billion, sorry, million. That would have been very bad. I was like, whoa, Go is, wait, that actually doesn't make any sense. How the fuck did I think it was 13 billion? What, the whole world uses Go, uses JavaScript? That doesn't make Anyways, ignore that. Yeah, but it's still clear a lot of people use JavaScript more than Go, so I guess there's a lot of people suffering, not realizing that they can be free of async await if they just used Go. But anyways, turns out Go is able to put the thread to sleep without having to rely on any archaic await. Because I've always hated async, I think a function should just take its argument, do what it does, and pass its return variables. I do agree. That's it. And I really hate it when people try to add clever add-ons. I agree, but one of the benefits of async is that you can fetch from multiple APIs, or you can make multiple network requests concurrently. So I wonder how Go handles that to I guess make more efficient functions. Because if you have a network request that takes too long, does that mean you basically block the whole thread until that network request finishes? Whereas in JavaScript, when I'm using async, I can just have that thread going on in the background and have another thread and then start another network request. But I know Go has something to deal with this, but I think for you to be able to do that, you basically can't block the thread, right? So I don't really understand, but let's see if we find out if Andrew talks about that and has any suggestions. Blah, 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 blah. The classic case is generators. Oh yeah, right. This function's for loop. This is a function that returns an iterator that returns the 3 values. So on one hand, if you knew this was indeed what this code was doing, it would be pretty simple. But if you don't know, then it's just madness. This is madness. I have no idea what this is. In fact, let me just ask ChatGPT, what the hell is this? I write Dart. I develop in Flutter, but I don't know what this is. Synchronous generator function uses blah, blah, blah. The function returns iterable, meaning it can be iterated over, that the function is synchronous. The yield keyword is used in generator function to produce a value. Each time yield is encountered, it provides the next value in the iteration. Okay. Okay, it looks like this just basically is an iterator. So it's just going to output 1, output 2, output 3. Just basically makes an iterable. How would I put it? How do you? I mean, here's the fact. I put this into ChatGPT. I still have no idea what the hell it's doing. I guess that's the point. He's basically trying to say, hey, look, I have no clue what this is doing, and I hate functions that basically like complicate themselves. Have you ever called an async function thinking it was asynchronous? I have plenty of times. That's why I use the Dart on awaited futures. This is actually a really good lint. It basically forces you to add await to async functions that you use, which is really cool because the amount of times I've written code where I forget to await an async function, especially in JavaScript, and then later on when I'm testing my code, I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I just see it right there. Flipping asynchronous function without an await, just chilling, just no errors whatsoever, looking perfectly fine, like nothing is wrong. But anyways, so you may ask about performance. Okay, this is it. If we don't have async await, will we have performance problems? Not really. Most of the time when you have an async function, it's pretty obvious why it's async, usually because it's a network request. And if you create some other way to run it asynchronously, like Go foo, of course, that's multi-threading. I really like. Okay, yeah. So this is what I was thinking. In Go, if you use Go, you basically create another thread. So essentially, it doesn't block the current thread, meaning that you can actually make multiple network requests at the same time. But the problem with this is that it basically causes the same problem as using async await, because as soon as you do this, then there needs to be a way to wait for multiple of these that are going on at the same time in the background. So yeah, I don't really know. Okay, maybe I'm being a bit facetious, but multi-threading can result in obscure bugs, but async and wait does not fix any of them. In order to fix them, you need to separate memory like dart isolates. However the case, there are plenty of ways to run code asynchronously without having to manually label it as async. That's true. In Go, you can basically do this without having to call it async, so it doesn't force you to use the labels async and await. So I guess that's the point here.